We're off. It's Tuesday, 29th of March. Is it the 29th of March? Yes. And we're going to do 2 from Switzerland. Now you wouldn't really think there's going to be much Swiss whiskey out there, and there's not. There's only 20 distilleries, which is a half decent amount, but considering they only started from July 1st 1999, is not huge compared to a lot of other countries in the rest of the world. And the reason it only started in July 1st 1999 was previous to that point, Swiss law decreed that potatoes and grain and staple foods couldn't be used in the distillation of making alcoholic drinks. But the World Trade Organization put a lot of pressure on them, the Swiss government, to get rid of that because it's good for trade, basically, making spirits. So as of July 1st, 1999, Switzerland, the Swiss were allowed to distill spirits made from staple foods, whereas previously it was kind of fruit-based brandies and liqueurs and things like that. So it's still a relatively young industry in Switzerland. They use the spelling of whiskey without the E because they want to get themselves associated with Scotch rather than Irish and American, and we've had that discussion before. And these are 2 that I was looking after, shall we say, at the Newcastle Whisky Festival. They were on the stand of World Whiskies, and I managed to snaffle a couple of samples. So the first one we'll go for is called Swiss Highland, which the bottle looks like this, and it is made at it's actually a brewery that added a distillery onto into their building itself. And if I show you a picture of the distillery, which is called Rugenbrau, you can see in the main building there's like a glass fronted bit on the top. Now that actually used to be, I think there were offices, and they've converted that into the distilling part of their operation. Now Rugenbrau is in a city called Interlaken, which is here, south east of Bern, roughly in the centre of the country. And the Swiss Highland Malt was, there's 2 versions of it. In fact, I found another one, but because I don't read Swiss, I've no idea what it actually was. There's one called Salto, which I've no idea what that is, but this is the classic, which is their standard version, and this was launched in 2008. They also do another version called Ice, where they take the whiskey and they then it's almost like a function room 3/4 of the way up a mountain, which is ridiculously cold and really atmospheric, and they mature the whiskey in casks in this cave. Essentially, it's not even a warehouse, it's a cave halfway up the mountain, and supposedly it does things to the cask, and it's like an equivalent of an ice vine, but not. Not tried it, unfortunately, haven't got it, would be interesting to have it, but I've got the classic here, which is there's only say 2,500 to 3,000 bottles per year, so it's a really limited run. And apparently Jim McEwen, who was until he retired last year, master distiller at Bruichladdich on Islay, tried this in 2007, fell in love with it, and decided to become a patron of the distillery. So all the tasting notes that you'll find for their whiskies, he actually wrote, and he gave them some advice and a helping hand in their whole production. So it's still young. It's 4 years max, and they're using sherry casks to mature in. Now some Swiss whiskies actually use beer casks, but these guys have decided to use refill sherry casks. Now it's really quite winey on the nose. It's kind of like white wine, like a dry white wine tang on the nose on it. There's some nice maltiness to it, but it's quite sharp. It really is a kind of a dry white wine sharpness to it. It's 46%, and that's probably a little bit of a factor in the sharpness on the nose as well. And there's a bit of maltiness that comes through, but it's really quite dry. That wininess kind of continues, that sort of dry, not tannins in terms of red wine, but you know how like a dry white wine can really kind of dry your mouth up and be quite sharp and harsh on your mouth. And it's not an oakiness, it's a dryness and it's a sharpness it's not unpleasant, but it's not great to drink. Yeah, it's a little bit tight, to be honest. Maybe could do with knocking down a couple of percent on the ABV, but I'm still not sure that would make much of a difference. Everything feels really tight, and it just needs to let loose a bit. It needs to let the maltiness loose, and it needs to let the fruitiness loose. And it's a little bit too sharp and not particularly well balanced. But it feels like there's a lot in there that needs to open out. And it would be very interesting to see what it's like at a kind of 8 to 10 year old. But I don't know if they've got enough stocks to be able to actually last that long. You know, if you're only doing 3,000 bottles, you need to get everything out there to make the money back. And they could probably do with making a little bit more. Now, it sounds like they're expanding the distillery. So they have got the potential to be making more and actually storing a lot more aside. And I think it needs it, because it feels to me like there's enough there that could be interesting. There's sort of little notes of maltiness and fruit, kind of green fruits. And it just needs this kind of concentration. It's not a good concentration. Everything's too tight and too... and it needs to loosen up a bit, and I think extra aging might do that. It's a shame, because I was quite looking forward to this, but yeah, a little bit of a duffer, but has potential, so we say. It's just whether they give it the chance to actually get that potential. Right, I'll rinse everything out, and in terms of if you wanted to buy this, you'd probably have to go to Switzerland. Maybe around that area of Europe, sort of Germany, Austria, around there. To find it in the UK, I think you'd struggle. I think you'd really struggle, to be honest, and you'd probably be paying a hell of a lot just to get hold of it. So if you're in Switzerland, it's worth checking it out. The distillery looks like a pretty interesting place to go as well, so it's probably worth checking that out. But yeah, in terms of the whiskey, bit of a disappointment. Right, rinse everything out, we'll get on to the next one. Cheers.